that says that we're now live again, hopefully for real. Please let me know if you can hear my voice or if I'm just talking into the ether. I really hope it's... I really hope we haven't just, like, discovered... Okay, awesome. Really glad about that. Okay, awesome. Miguel is telling me that he's discovered an all-new echo, which is wild, actually. Miguel is telling me that I didn't even know that there were new types of echoes that we hadn't even heard before.
Yeah, no, this is fun.
Is it okay? Can I?
Let me figure out what's doing it.
Okay, please
I
bear.
can see some stuff that probably should.
Is it okay? Please bear with me for just one more minute while we sort out the weird echo. Please bear with me for just one more minute while we sort out the weird echo. We don't have like webcam audio, right?
I think we did. I think
we don't have like okay webcam audio. Because that's yeah. I'm still really confused with that webcam actually as a microphone. Because that's yeah. I'm still really confused. Hopefully the echo has disappeared. Hopefully the echo has disappeared. You'll have to tell me, because I've...
Yeah, no, I'm listening.
Yep.
It's like this very slow.
You'll have to tell me, because I've...
Lag.
Yep.
I'm not sure where it's coming from. A little bit of time.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just another minute while we...
Talk to people, that'll help me figure out what's going on.
Sure. I've been instructed to talk to people because we're having audio issues. Last week I started the game. We're through, I believe, the first 2 chapters. And we are just about to hit the point where the battle system finally really opens up and like actually shows you the part that's, I think, interesting and forces you to act tactically. So I'm really excited about that. Also, I immediately found the problem with the tutorial and getting the car. Just a really weird thing because I'd added in a feature for our final boss fight. It was suddenly interfering with the tutorial. But it's now working and I can now finally compare and contrast the opening of my game and Final Fantasy XIII. How are we looking over there audio-wise?
I've
The
found
opening of my
part
game
the
and Final
cause.
Fantasy XIII. How are we looking over there
Delay
audio-wise?
stuff still in from last thing where we had like in a separate delay stuff going on.
Okay.
Do a little bit of talking.
Yeah, sure. So, just as soon as we sort out whatever's happening delay-wise, I'll get started, which will hopefully be very soon. Sorry, right now I'm just talking so that Miguel can do a test. That hopefully doesn't have any weird echo. No, still echoey. How bad is it? How bad is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's soft echo. You talk for a little bit. I think I've done another thing.
Okay, sure. I'm not actually sure what I should be talking about. Just hopefully, we'll be resolving these, Sorry, Miguel has told me to talk for a moment just so we can test to hear if the echo is still there. I'm getting people in chat saying it's good. I'm not sure what that gesture was.
Stop talking.
I'm not sure what that gesture was.
One word.
One word. Okay, chat's saying that. All right. Well, Miguel might still be fiddling around in the background, but I'm gonna get started. Okay, chat's saying that. All right. Let's do this. Might still be fiddling around in the background, but I'm gonna get started. So let's do this. By the way, here's a really good feature in this game, the recap, just reminding you where you are in the story. The recap. This is a really good feature, especially if you're you know, waiting every week. This is a really good feature, especially if you're you know, waiting every week. Really, I think any game that's any game of this length, it's a really good thing to have, you know, just a reminder. I also really like the one in Pokemon, which doesn't tell you what happens story-wise, it just tells you what things that you did, which is good because, like, you don't really care where you are in the story, but you do, like, want to remember, like, what was your task? What were you focusing on? Good because, like, you don't really care where you are in the story, but you do, like, want to remember, like, what was your task? What were you focusing on?
Excuse me.
See you around. You know. No, but I want to. You just missed her. She said she'd be at the usual place.
Thanks.
Sorry about that. Now, who'd you say you were looking for?
Here goes. Making a wish?
Maybe I was. I was hoping that tomorrow I can tell my sister. Maybe I was. She'll be so mad, knowing I hid it from her.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll take the blame for you.
Knowing I hid it from her.
You know, you should ask for something bigger. I'll take the blame for you. These are wish-granting fireworks, like in the stories. You know, you should ask for something bigger.
Stories,
These
huh?
are wish-granting fireworks, like in the stories.
The see who fulfill their focus. They become crystal and gain eternal life. The see who fulfill their focus.
Would help if they gave you some clue about what you're supposed to do.
Eternal life.
We'll figure this thing out. You will never be one of those monsters.
So what will I be? A crystal?
Be one of those monsters.
So what will I be?
Yesterday at the store, I got us something. I don't know much about jewelry, but I hope you like it. I don't know much about jewelry, but I hope you like it. I will stand by you, no matter what happens. I'm yours forever. Sarah, stand by you. My one, my only. Will you marry me?
Yes.
She said yes!
Unfortunately, they're very cute. Okay.
But something. I wish I understood this audio.
I'm very sorry, everyone. Hopefully the audio is back now. Please let me know. I'm very sorry, everyone. Hopefully the audio is back now. Please let me know. I'm very sorry, everyone. Hopefully the audio is back now. Please let me know. I'm very sorry, everyone. Okay.
News. Oh man, I can't wait to see her face. She'll be my new sister. Man, I can't wait to see her.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Hey, Snow?
Yeah. What? That was close.
Gorgeous. Our own private heaven.
It's all we need. Just you and me.
Thank you, Snow. Thank you, Snow.
Yeah, no, that was the first thing I thought also was wet dry. Sorry, you can hear me in the back. Yeah, no, that was the first like perish.
Yeah, I definitely have to say, like, even on, you know, the, this is the PC version, so it's a little bit more recent than the, yeah, I definitely have to say, like, the original PS3 360 release, but still, like, a little bit more recent than the, this looks really good, I feel like.
Is this for real?
This looks really good, I feel like.
Is this for real?
This must be
Hey, sorry,
Lake
one
Brescia?
second.
I guess we fell from up there. And the lake turned to crystal? Help me out here. I mean, did the fal'Cie do this?
No,
How in the world did we end up here?
How should I know?
I streamed this back, and that was absolutely fine.
We're alive.
Andy in chat has correctly identified the problem, which
No one
is that
survives a fall from that high.
the stream
Not without a miracle.
was being streamed
Sarah saved us.
Sarah,
on the computer.
listen.
That was
It's all your fault. She got...
Hey! Watch out!
What did I just do?
You used magic. You used the power of fal'Cie. The fal'Cie cursed us. We're fal'Cie now. Right.
So here we go. This is the real meat of the battle system. Assign characters, most effective goals, by committing paradigms. asking if this is one that people didn't like on the grounds it's linear. Yes, I think their analysis is incorrect. I don't think that's a good read on the way that this game is structured, but this is the one you're thinking of. Okay, so if you look beside everyone,
Thanks.
show you what class. Why is that my target? Oh, dead. Okay. It shows you what class they are. So right now we have 1 Commando and 2 Ravagers. I'll explain a bit more in a second. Once that's on screen.
Talking. I can't fix it if you're not talking.
So we really are LaCie.
Looks like it.
You too?
Yep. Right here.
Okay.
Forgot that was where her LaCie brand
See
was.
to the last. Why me? I don't even know you, but you have to go and attack that thing? Just leave me alone. It's your fault. It's your fault, You could have. All of this is your and Sarah's fault.
Watch it! Sorry.
Everything is gonna be all right. You'll see. Come on. Off we go.
LaCie, huh?
Yep. We're all playing for Team Post. Why me? Trust the soldier to keep her cool through this mess.
It's true, Snow is the one good wife
If we
guy.
don't know our focus, how do we complete it?
It's cute and I respect it.
I think I saw it.
Saw what?
That is how a focus comes down, people. The fal'Cie, they don't spell it out with clear-cut instructions. All you get is a hazy glimpse.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, that's what they say. You know, legends and all. Legends.
Did you see anything?
I just... It's all kind of foggy, but I saw this big, towering...
What? Wait a minute. Hold on now. Do we all have the same dream?
Ragnarok.
I just broke something, damn it.
How are we supposed to know what to do from that?
That's the tricky part. The dream's the only hint the fal'Cie gives us. Figuring out what to do with it, that's our job.
Okay. We're Pulse LaCie, right? Enemy's a Cocoon. So, does that mean that our focus is... Are we supposed to...
Save her.
Say what?
Our focus is to protect Cocoon.
Really? Okay. And why's that?
Sarah told us. Let's do it. We're all in this together. I'm gonna look for Sarah. She ought to be nearby.
I'll come too. Wait!
Jeez. Yeah, that boy can't stay still.
Really?
Okay, more tutorial. So, also, this game has something similar to leveling. I feel like it's basically the same as leveling. Where instead of just having discrete character levels, it's each class that you upgrade, and you do it by just going through this big tree, which was, I think, a lot more novel at the time than it is now, where every game, single game, AAA, like every single AAA game has a big upgrade system like this. Although I still think it makes more sense in an RPG than like being everything. Don't worry too much about what's being said here. Who's in my party? Let's increase the sentinel abilities first. Actually, these are fine. Let's not do that. Let's increase his commando abilities. And Vanille. Yeah, we're still very much in tutorial land right now.
We need to find a way out of here.
We've only just found out what the battle system is even about. This paradigm. What paradigms do I have? Okay, so I'm gonna make a paradigm that just gives me as much commando as possible. I'll explain why that's... So it's true that the first battle system, look, the first battle in the game explains how stagger works. I don't think it really explains why it's interesting, and that's just as bad as not explaining how it works. Like, if you don't have an understanding of what's actually going on, then it means that you don't actually know what you should be doing. You don't really internalize what, like, it's teaching you things, or it's telling you things, but it's not telling you why you should be thinking about them at all, and I feel like that's actually just as bad.
That's a lot of enemies.
And honestly, I've never gone into this tutorial fresh. When I originally played through these games, I played through them in reverse order. Just because Lightning Returns came out, there were a bunch of interviews talking about how it was inspired by Majora's Mask, which is one of my favorite games. And I just jumped right into that. So as a result, I played through the series backwards and already knew these mechanics from the later games. Once we get a little further in, I'll just talk a bit more about how this battle system works. Right now, we're just moving through battles way too quickly, so... And yeah, it is the case that the later games tutorialize all this stuff better. I don't think it's really surprising that, like, the more iteration time you have...
This just might work.
Lightning Returns is directly inspired by Majora's Mask. It's just straight up a time loop game.
We fight it! Ragnarok! That's the reason we're fal'Cie. To stop it. To keep Cocoon safe.
Yeah, why don't you give us one reason to believe that? One reason.
Sarah. She said to protect Cocoon, and then she turned to Crystal. That's the proof right there. She completed her focus. That means ours is to save Cocoon. Sarah's fal'Cie was the same as ours. Our focus has got to be the same. We were chosen to be guardians. To defeat Ragnarok. It makes sense.
What the hell it does? You're grasping at straws, son. Post fal'Cie are Cocoon's enemies. We just got recruited by one of them. If I were a betting man, I'd put us on the other side.
So Sarah's an enemy too? Well, I don't buy it. We have the power to save Cocoon if we work together and carry out our focus.
The fal'Cie took Sarah from us, and you want to help it? Whose side are you on?
Freeze!
Huh?
Place your hands behind your heads! You fall off the purge train?
Maybe.
Or are you talking back to me? Huh? Huh?
Nice gun.
Stop her! Freeze!
Okay, so we now have an explanation for why Fanil's ATB meter was one larger than everyone else's. It's because she had fal'Cie powers, which is cute as a detail. I'll say what it's teaching here isn't necessarily... isn't really necessary.
Stay sharp.
I thought they'd be tougher than that. This guy's a psychom, yeah? Supposed to be cream of the crop.
Yeah, but PSICOM's an anti-pulse task force. They haven't fought a war in centuries. Bunch of rookie troops swinging around overpriced toys.
So, from what you're telling me, sounds like a regular old soldier has got more training than special forces.
Nothing for us fal'Cie to be afraid of.
Cut the crap. Their grunts might be green, but PSICOM's elites are cold-blooded beasts. They hit the field and it's game over.
Blue Wizard, I don't actually know that.
Let's run away. Ciao.
Wait, hey, wait! What's a man to do?
Nope, nothing there. Okay, so right now I have a lot of Ravagers in the party, and those are classes that are good at raising the stagger bar. Whereas Commandos are classes that are good at, like, actually doing damage, which is multiplied against the stagger bar. So generally what you want to do strategically is build up the meter and then do a lot of damage. Right now it doesn't matter just because these enemies are so weak, it's not quite giving enough of a challenge. Yeah, we're seeing some slander for Chocolina in the chat. She's great in the later games. There is a character called Chocolina, not in this one, but she's very important in Lightning Returns. And she is wonderful. Oh, and in the second one as well. Actually, I'm hurting. Let's get some healing there. So what I just did there was that I saw that Lightning was looking kind of hurt, and if she dies, that's pretty bad. So I'm switching to the Solidarity paradigm, which gives me a medic class for Vanille, and a Sentinel class for Snow, which is basically the tank. So instead of like explicitly choosing heal actions, you just switch to those classes, and it does the rest. On its own. But it's still just as much explicitly like picking heal as it would be in a classic Final Fantasy. They've just changed the way that you think about it. Paradigms are definitely easier to understand in both harder fights and boss fights. I feel like they're really built for boss fights. Part of it is that like the game is afraid to throw like too hard a fight at you at this point. Yes, the problem is that if Lightning dies, or whoever the leader of the party is at that moment dies, you'll get a game over. I don't like this style of doing things. Classic Persona does it. I also don't like it there. I feel like it just means that, I don't know, it's just a weirdly weighted thing, right? shit. Sorry, hard to both pay attention and talk. I feel like one of the problems that makes this a little bit difficult to learn very quickly is because they're teaching you both the roles and paradigms at the same time. So there's not really enough time to like explain what the difference between Commando and Ravager is, for example. Yeah, I really like the versatility of the archetypes in here because not every character isn't identical. They're still differentiated. But it is the case that like someone isn't just a healer. So for example, fal'Cie can right now be just a Ravager and a medic. And Snow can be Commando, Ravager, or Sentinel, but like he can't be a healer, he can't like do any of the... He can only be a tank. Lightning, again, only Commando and Ravager, she can't even be a Sentinel. So like the characters are still differentiated, and it means that like there are only certain paradigms that are possible within like a party configuration. Definitely like further on, the paradigms matter a lot more. I ended up definitely having like, I was constantly at the maximum number of paradigms and I would shift them up, especially in the part of the game where it really opens up. Just because like different types of enemy encounters require really different loadouts. Okay, since there's some confusion, a paradigm is a loadout of like what roles. For example, the Relentless Assault paradigm is one that has Lightning as a Commando, Snow as a Ravager, and fal'Cie as a Ravager, so that's 2 Ravagers and 1 Commando. These names are generated based on what the breakdown is. The game just has one for most possible combinations. If you start getting into the weird ones, I think there's just the one predefined name, but the names hint at like what these things are useful for. So, for example, Relentless Assault is useful if you want to immediately build up stagger, but also still have someone like exploiting that stagger. Or chain gauge is what they call it in this one. Stagger is what I call it in mine. Solidarity is good for healing because there's a tank, there's a medic, and there's still someone just doing damage. Yeah, right now I can't do a Ravage loadout, but it's good. It's good for like really building up meter fast. It's also, you know, fragile. And aggression is good for really exploiting that. There's also, you can do one that's like all Commando, that's even better. But yeah, right now, like there are other combinations I could do. I could do This is a weird one. I don't know why you'd want this. Maybe if you have a fight where... yeah, I don't know why you'd want Ravage, Sentinel, Ravage. Ravage, Sentinel, Medic, that's... yeah. And really the biggest thing you do in combat is just switching between paradigms. Like, that's your primary thing. Sometimes you want to, like... Okay, Fox in chat points out that Mystic Tower is good for certain Eidolon fights.
I might as well make introductions. I'm Snow. Snow Villiers. Short stuff?
Hope Estine.
What about her?
Bodum Security Regiment. She goes by Lightning. Last name's Farron. First, anybody's guess.
O'Neill.
Saz, Catchboy. Good to meet you. It's not right. Why'd kids have to get dragged into this?
I'll keep the kids out of trouble.
Problem with that is, you're one of them.
Hey.
Trying to take on the post fal'Cie. That was our first mistake. You should have left it to the Sanctum. Why not? I mean, we've counted on the Sanctum's fal'Cie for food, water, everything we've needed since the time we were born.
But you still helped us do it. Why is that? Gotta be something.
There might have been. Not so sure anymore.
I mean, why would you need to know another name when you have Lightning? That's perfect.
Guess they're hunting down purge survivors now.
Yeah, I really like how this area looks. It's just... it's a really good dramatic shift from, you know, the big green area at the start. You know, just going through all those primary colors.
Don't sweat it. I'll take care of this.
Okay, so you don't have to do auto battle. You should, but what you can do is you can just go into open abilities and queue up 3 attacks. Or however many are in your ATB. But if you hit auto battle, it'll just do that for you. Sometimes, like, it might be more useful to, like, manually pick your own, but, it's not very common. Like, it's giving you that control if you really want it, but... like, just in case the auto is doing something really weird.
Is that wreckage from the vestige?
I do feel like it's unfortunate how quickly these battles go. Because you're not getting enough time to, like, really experiment. I feel like really, just given how complicated paradigms are, I feel like it would have been good if they introduced them in, like, a big boss fight. Just to, like, something that, like, forces you to heal a lot. And forces you to switch around a lot.
I'll get you out of there.
I mean, this is a classic Final Fantasy problem that I think games earlier in the sequence series have struggled with a lot more, which is that they have a lot of mechanics, but only in boss fights they're become like you don't actually have to use them until boss fights. I think that's increasingly less true as you go along in this game, but it's something they've struggled with a lot.
You're just gonna leave her?
SciComm will be here soon. If they find us, we're all dead. You think Sarah'd want that? You think you know how she feels?
If I leave her, then I'll never know. We'll be fine. I can handle anything they throw at us. No one will die. I'll protect Sarah and Cocoon.
Does she look protected to you?
I can save her!
What can you possibly do?
Whatever it takes!
Ooh, me. You two are hopeless. You just can't admit it. You want to stay as much as he does. Huh? Whoa, whoa! No, no! No, no, no! Not now! Stand back!
Okay, so here it actually is showing you, like, why you want to be doing all the stuff that you've already been doing. I think the problem is that this is just too much text. I'm looking at this and I understand everything that it's saying, but often, I think in general it's easier to teach stuff when there's an element of forcing the player to make sure they've actually internalized it, which, it's just too much text. So here we finally have a boss fight that has like a really big stagger meter. So let's switch over to some commandos. One of the things is that commandos. Whoops, let's get some healing in there. Commandos can stop the stagger meter from falling. Every time they attack, there's just like a little timer that stops it from going down just a little.
We gotta win this!
So they'll stay in a stagger state longer when you have commandos in addition to your damage being multiplied. So incidentally, that's one of those things that's like a little bit of shit.
I can't stop now.
Okay, let me be a little more cautious in that fight. I don't believe there are any TP abilities yet. I think that's a little bit later on.
Just stay out of my way.
Back off!
So yeah, the AI doesn't know that it's the most important thing to do is to keep lightning healed, but one thing is that you can use items to compensate for that, and also if you have a sentinel in the party, they're tanking, so it's relatively safe. I don't remember if that's something that they sorry, actually in the sequel to this they made it so that like you don't die if the party leader you don't get a game over if the party leader dies, so it's no longer a problem, and I think that was the correct decision. And yeah, if you're really in a pinch, you can switch to a paradigm that has like 2 healers.
Just stay out of my way.
Back off!
So you can see that lightning just went from like 0 to full very quickly. This is something that I do copy and get in the car, is that healing is very powerful and like I think you sort of want it to be. Not the cleanest way I could have done that. I don't think it's hard to tell what's going on because you're just supposed to be looking at the meters to see what's like the actual overview of the situation.
We want to help Sarah too. But without tools, we could be digging for days. The army's on our trail. So for now, we gotta keep moving. For now.
So I just abandon her and save myself?
What about your focus? What happened to banding together and saving the world? Isn't that what you promised? Now you want to forget it all and die right here? Snow, you're nothing but talk.
I'll do whatever it takes. I'll finish this focus and keep Sarah safe. That's my promise.
Great job so far.
Stay out of trouble.
You do.
Get going.
Look, Snow's doing his best, okay?
Later.
Okay.
Snow.
Save it for next time, kiddo. You'll get left behind.
But...
It's okay, Hope. Light'll take care of you. We'll meet again.
yeah. Count on it.
I'll get you out of there.
Count on it.
Maybe we shouldn't have left him on his own.
I think Hope is being pretty reasonable under the circumstances. But... I don't know. Snow's trying his best. It's very endearing. Okay, pulled the trigger on switching that paradigm a little too late. Yeah, let's just play it out. I don't want to waste a Phoenix down. Or, waste a Phoenix down. She'll be back. So here's the thing. The difference between a scarf and a cape is... as far as actual fashion goes, it's like a real, like... it's a real mushy gray area. Like, it really is just a spectrum of what counts as a scarf and what counts as a cape. I've seen some very cape-like things that are supposed to be scarves. Like, they're not clearly defined categories. Miguel's laughing in the other room, but it's true. This is just genuinely how fashion works with regards to that. Unfortunately, I don't think Saz has any... He only has Ravager, so this is kind of limiting my paradigms. Saz doesn't have Commando at this exact moment, so that's a little unfortunate. I don't really have any strong opinions on how I'm leveling this right now. The party just switches around, until later, the party switches around somewhat arbitrarily, through various party members. I don't think they quite knew what to do with the large party size in this. This is something that I think a lot of RPGs have trouble with. This is why I'm, like, a firm believer of just having, like, one set of parties and, like, never making it so you can customize it. Final Fantasy IV is good about it because they just do it to just, like, they're just constantly changing out the party. The weird thing is that, like, you never know what your final party is until, like, pretty late on.
I hope Snow's okay.
6 was a little bit better about it, insofar as there's just a lot of times where, like, it'll split things up and, like, do things from multiple viewpoints, which they sort of flirt with a little in this, and I don't think it quite lands. But on the other hand, like, the number of characters is really good from the perspective of it means they have, like, a lot of character dynamics. So I think having that, like, number of, you know, characters around is a good idea. Story-wise, it's just combat and structurally, it doesn't quite, I don't think it quite works.
Okay, do not shake the slippery tube. We cool on this? Do not shake the slippery tube.
It seems pretty sturdy. Yeah, chat bringing up that, I feel like BioWare games are vastly worse for, having parties, like, no reason to ever, change who's in your party other than just, like, for story reasons. I've recently been playing, Tales of Vesperia, which has, like, BioWare-style skits. They make it a little more explicit. Like, it's just a button you press to get, here's an arbitrary skit in this middle of what's going on. But it means that, like, you're not rearranging your party just for the sake of story, which I feel like is never, ever interesting. Like, that's a bad series of trade-offs. I think when you're asking a player to make either a decision that has a mechanical benefit or,
It's hardly scary if you look down. You should close your eyes.
if you have a decision that, like, part of it's story-wise, but part of it's mechanical, and I think that's always a difficult thing to do. Because it just, like, it's hard to weigh those two against each other because they're not, like, they're not the same thing. Anyway, that's why I don't like manually picking the party and, like, gating story stuff around that. I think even manually gating the party, like, manually making you switch up the party when there's no reason, story-wise or otherwise, to do it is even worse, because, like, why not just have 3 characters to begin with?
Exactly how I feel.
feel like the camera work in this, like in battles in this, is just really good. The camera in like in the world is kind of rough and just kind of floats around, but like the way that the combat and like the camera in battle is always just showing something really cool, I feel like is really good. It works. The animations are, in fact, really cool. It makes it feel like the influence on the battle that you're doing is like leading to interesting stuff. Which is like if you imagine like this looking like more like a classic Final Fantasy game where just like people lining up on one side and enemies on the other, I think switching paradigms like would not feel quite as satisfying.
This thing's a wreck. I don't think we can use it.
The camera tends to be more dynamic in normal fights than boss battles because the bosses just tend to be very large, and as a result, there's less you can do with it.
Hey, can we use that to get out of here?
Looks operational.
Royal Blue Wizard, the thing about the AoE stuff is that, like, because you don't have control over your positioning anyway, it doesn't actually really matter. I think it's just, like, you just have to think about it as it's something that might happen, therefore don't be at low health or don't be at, you know, that sort of vulnerability. Yeah, I think the ecosystem, just in Pulse in general, is going through a rough time right now over the course of this story. Yes, we're still in Kinfu right now. So the key thing there is that right now we don't actually have anything interesting that uses TP, but TP is the meter that carries over between fights, so it doesn't just get auto-refilled. And I think, I don't know, it's fine in this. Lightning Returns did a lot with, that. Where, like, having this 1 meter that, like, you're constantly trying to fill through combat and, like, pacing your entire route through the game was entirely built around, like, raising your TP meter. Anyway, I do think it's an interesting choice to have one, like, have the health meter have no continuity between battles, but the TP meter does.
Look at that. They're sending in cruisers. Primark must be sweating bullets, mobilizing ships like that.
Sweep team, form ranks.
They must be hunting down Purge survivors.
I hope everyone made it out okay.
So do I. But nowhere is safe for them now. Damn it. Just cause they shared a neighborhood with a fal'Cie. They get treated like post-tainted rats.
People really hate Pulse, don't they?
Not hate. More like fear. Tens of millions of people, all scared of Pulse boogeymen. They'd be shaking in their beds every night if they knew that fal'Cie like us were around.
But they purged that entire town.
It's crazy, I know. But the Sanctum fal'Cie did nothing to stop it. Up until now, Eden's always stepped in to correct their errors in judgment. Guess humans aren't worth the effort. Figure they'll let us just kill each other off.
fal'Cie are not human.
Listen, you, that's enough. We're still alive. That's something.
What?
Where is it?
I don't know.
There! They're sealing off the area. They're trying to trap the stragglers. We gotta get moving before we're caught in the net.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks. I think the big thing, though, is that, like, honestly, I feel like Final Fantasy XIII is, like, I feel like it's a really fun game on its own, but I do feel like these games definitely got stronger the more time they had to iterate. And I don't know, the fact that, like, I'm able to learn from both this game, the sequel, and then the third sequel, or the second sequel, I don't know, it just means that, like, I can look at what mistakes they made and instead make my own mistakes. I strongly disagree that like this game has a problem with vocabulary. I mean, I imagine all this shit is explained in the data log, which is like the lore codex, and I've just been ignoring that because I feel like it's much more interesting to just like, you know, let it bathe over you and figure it out from context, because this is a 50-hour game and eventually it does all just make sense through context. I think they want you to feel a little bit disoriented rather than like slowing down to explain every single detail. Like the cosmology does come together. Like, I feel like the weird aspects of names for things that like have come up that haven't been immediately obvious through context are in fact supposed to be a little mysterious. Like, I think you're not supposed to have a clear concept of, say, what a fal'Cie is yet. And like, that's just a deliberate part of how you're interfacing with the world. Whereas, like, I don't think it matters that you don't know exactly what Eden is. Like, it conveyed what it needed to convey.
Too bad that's all busted up. Sure would have made things easier.
I will say about the level design, I do think it's a little bit, you'll notice that I'm constantly going off the path just to go open up a treasure chest, which is very classic, classic Final Fantasy design. Every single Final Fantasy game has that, and I think without, they've sort of streamlined it so that like you can see in the mini map what the critical path is, so you always know which of the two paths is the critical one and which is the one where they're going to be hiding like a little small bonus. And I don't know, I feel like it's never been interesting, and that's just sort of emphasizing how much that isn't good. Yeah, as Fox is pointing out in chat, it's very much, in classic RPGs, it's there to just waste your time and, like, you know, make you backtrack for the sake of, causing attrition to your life. Whereas, in this, it doesn't really seem to have much of a purpose other than just making it feel like you're not just going through, you know, a single linear path, except clearly people felt like they were going on a single linear path anyway, so I'm not quite sure it quite hit that. Like, I feel like, honestly, like, Labyrinth RPG dungeon design has just been, like, starting from, you know, the really awful ones in, like, Dragon Quest I and Phantasy Star onwards to the more streamlined versions. I feel like they've always never really quite had a good raison d'etre, and, like, I feel like it just becomes increasingly obvious over time. Anyway, that's why I don't have a world map at all in my game at all. You think this is one straight line. Get in the car. Now that's a straight line.
Stay sharp.
Clawful in chat suggesting the only straight here is the roads would be a good quote for get in the car. True, correct. Yeah, the enemy design in this continues to be great. Sure, time to
This whole place is crystal.
fight a fucking motorcycle.
I wonder what it'd be like to become a crystal, I mean.
You gonna complete your focus?
Maybe. If I knew what it was. Yeah, I probably don't want to know.
Hey, Lightning. Did Sarah say anything to you about her focus?
Nothing.
You know what? She probably didn't want to worry you.
Or she just didn't think she could trust me.
Oh.
Okay, sorry. Pardon me for just 1 second. I'll be right back. That's too many cephalopods. Or cephalopods? I'm never sure how to... Anyway, sorry, I'm back now. Yes, I should be using Libra on all these guys. Oh, thanks for joining us, Wizard.
Stay sharp.
feel like level scaling is like a really difficult, it often comes from like a really well-motivated place, which is that, you know, you always want the game to be hard, but in practice it can feel unsatisfying. I'm not really sure how you pull it off in a way that feels good. Like, I just can't say I've ever seen an instance of it that's good, even though, like, the motivation is great. And I do feel like one of the worst things that an RPG can be is too easy. Oh yeah, I should be using Libra. Then I should be switching paradigm. Okay, turns out his weaknesses are the only spells that I have anyway, so great.
Stay sharp.
Oh, right, I forgot. I don't have a second commando in there, so that paradigm shift did not do anything.
What's that? I think I recognize it from somewhere.
Yeah, the AI in this, it's definitely really good, which is a really good thing because I feel like otherwise battles would be really frustrating. Like, that would be a very easy thing to fuck up. And I think it'd be pretty catastrophically bad if it weren't.
Stay sharp.
Yeah, Psychon Ranger just hanging out in the corner, not really doing anything useful.
When the flames turn to crystal.
Oh man, yeah, those crystal flames are in fact pretty cool. do I recommend playing Final Fantasy XIII backwards? I think if you're only going to play one game from the series, Lightning Returns is absolutely the most interesting. It's... In a lot of ways, it feels less like a finely polished AAA game and more like a messy B game, which is absolutely my favorite thing. So, I don't know. I feel like it's the better one, if you're only going to play one at all, but... I think if you play them in order, you're not... Playing them in order is probably the smarter thing to do, but you definitely can. One interesting thing about playing the series backwards was that, the introductions to the characters in Lightning Returns are, like, just good enough that, like, it's expecting you to know who they are, but you get a good enough introduction that you just see them at their absolute worst, and then you just go back in time to find out, like, what everyone looked like when, you know, they had their shit comparatively together and had comparatively more hope. And if you think it's weird that I'm saying that these characters have hope, man. Final Lightning Returns, they're not doing great. Ha 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 ha. Man, 5 stars? Really? That did not feel like a 5-star win to me.
Use some sort of devices for the magic. I don't think it's the same as the sea stuff.
I feel like the thing that I really like about the different games in the series is that the cosmology just keeps getting increasingly fucked up over time. Like, it was wild hitting, like, going backwards from Lightning Returns just to realize, oh, there's a lot of weird fucked up gods in this.
Hey, hey! It looks like we can get through here.
Good point. Let's level up my Crystarium. Sorry. The air is a little dry around here. I'm having a nosebleed. Just give me a second while I, go find some tissue. sorry about that. Like I said, the air is a little dry in the winter in Toronto. Plus, you know, all this time staring at Lightning's scarf has just been like, you know, really doing it. Just such a good scarf. Or cape. I do feel like still at this point in the game the fights are too easy because they still haven't quite introduced enough vocabulary to make them hard. Who's this guy? Maybe he'll change things. Yeah, I absolutely love the soundtrack of these games. Shit. I don't think I'm getting out of this one. I'm really glad I said that, because otherwise, like, I might be doing fine in this fight.
I can't stop now.
So that's an instance of the paradigm didn't help me precisely because I didn't have access to a sentinel. Okay, let's just try taking out his friends first. That's probably a smarter thing to do. Something else I'd like to point out that is something I do differently in Get in the Car, partially just because of the way that like it felt, is pay close attention to the percentages that appear in the on the chain gauge, like
Stay sharp.
what numbers cause enemies to go over. Because I actually do it slightly differently. In this, they all start at 100%, but even if you're not staggered, it'll increase damage. So, like, if it says, like, 103% and they're not staggered, your attacks are actually still being multiplied by that. And as a result, they often have, like, lower stagger pushover points. Whereas, and you'll see this when I move over to Get in the Car, but for Get in the Car, I always make the stagger point you can start off lower, but the damage is never multiplied until they're staggered.
Somebody must have called for reinforcements.
And I felt like that worked better balance-wise, at least for what I was doing. I'm not sure. I'm sure they had their reasons for it in this. But part of it is that, for example, there are some enemies, they're not common in this, but there's some where it's like the stagger meter goes from 101 to 103%. And like 103 is the stagger point, which makes it a little less obvious what's going on when you push it over. Whereas I wanted to be like revolving around really big numbers, or at least like really chunky numbers. And like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. It's like, it's a less gradual transition because like there's a very clean point of change. And again, I think I would just like pay close attention to the animation that they use here when enemies are staggered, because it's really different from what I did just because of, oh shit, did not change in time.
I can't stop now.
Yeah, I think it's a correct call that like by making death like there's a consequence to death, but not like a huge one. I feel like it does like just encourage you to, you know, it means you can make fights harder because you don't have to worry about like how much you have to repeat. And it means that like you can force players to feel more comfortable with experimenting because the cost is so low. You know, please fire off that heal. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so just pay attention to what happens when you stagger an enemy, just like the animation that happens there. Because this was something I absolutely could not replicate in 2D at all. I had to go in a completely different direction. Because, so they have that pause, they have that camera angle change, and they really need, like, both those things to go together. And, like, there's just no way to do that in 2D. It just doesn't translate. I do think... Like, I do think if you're having very forgiving deaths, you do have to, like, add in challenge and add in more critical thinking to compensate for that, which, honestly, we're not seeing quite at this moment. We'll see later on. And I think it's also like a necessity out of having such a hard, because of the fact that you're healed at the end of every fight, they sort of have to have, those, hard game overs as like those game overs as a shit. Okay, this is. I'm just gonna die here. I goofed this up. But because, like, you heal at the end of every battle, it means they can't do, like, a soft failure, which is, like, you do okay in the fight, but you lose so much health that, like, you're worse off. Those sorts of soft failures are what, like, a lot of classic RPGs are about, and it's what getting the car is about. Lightning Returns actually also has a lot more of that soft failure, where you can win a fight, but, like, you either lost health or the resource attrition was just too high. But when you have fights where, like, you'll always get everything back at the end, other than your TP, it means you do have to, like, you know, really work to, what's the way to put it?
Stay sharp.
I guess the thing is, if your only failure mode is dying, that means it has to be pushing that failure mode. Man, soft failure should just go on my Twitter bio. That's what I'm about.
It's making the hairs on my neck stand up.
You gotta stop worrying, Sass.
Oh, I was supposed to use that to ambush them. I don't know how I feel about these, they're going for something similar to what Persona 5 would later, like, really nail with those sorts of ambush points. But, like, the fact that they're so rare means that I keep forgetting that they exist. And yeah, as Ren in chat points out, that one of the problems with attrition-based design is that it makes it really hard to avoid, like, just creating, like, situations where you can just be completely fucked over and, like, have an unwinnable save. Which is, something that I'm very worried about in getting the car. I'm trying to be very deliberate about not making sure that doesn't happen, but it's hard. It is one of the side effects, is that it's very easy to balance around, it's very easy to balance around hard failures and very hard to balance around soft failures.
close.
I want to look around.
Lightning, the babysitter soldier.
Neil.
I'm going to use Libra. Yeah, here you can see the animations in this game working overtime to just be really cool. What does it mean to hit an enemy in the air? Well, you jump up to slash them, obviously. I feel like the problem with cheating after, like, the player's been having too much trouble is that the player's aware that the cheat exists and they'll rely on it, which can be a very frustrating thing because it might not feel balanced around relying on that. So, like, being overly generous as a player can actually be something that ends up being frustrating.
Like having to walk away and then like changing their mind and getting it in the face again.
Just stay out of my way.
One thing that the stagger system, I think, really, its strength is that, like, you see this giant health bar and you're like, oh shit, I'm barely chipping away at it. But then once you, like, build up, you know, now it's taking, like, 460% damage every time. So suddenly everything you do, like, is just really dramatic. And I feel like it feels really good for, like, sudden momentum shifts, which are very easy for the player to understand. Okay, finally we unlock some better rules.
Check it out.
Come on, hop to it. Let's go.
This'll make things easier.
Uh-huh. Yeah, knowing our luck, it's probably missing an engine.
You shouldn't be so negative.
And you shouldn't get your hopes up.
Okay, I feel like this is a good stopping point. I'm gonna switch over to Get in the Car Loser now, where I have fixed the tutorial that I was trying to show last time, so hopefully this will work. Or maybe I've just jinxed it by saying that. Who knows? Just bear with me while I switch over the game. Yeah. So, I guess we also need to change on Twitch.
The audio stuff.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm just going to drop a tweet so everyone knows that now is a great time to join in. We might also need to change the volume level on the game once it starts.
Yeah, no, I'll do a little live mix once that's up.
Okay. Sending off that tweet. Let's okay, yeah, that's probably gonna be pretty loud over there too. How's it looking over there?
Good, I still need to change the game name.
So I'm just gonna run through the opening again. I'm not gonna do voices because I would literally die. It would be fatal. Cool. Stop streaming yourself. Stop streaming yourself. Stop streaming yourself.
Oh, I can't echo.
Oh, just saw another bug that no one else is going to notice. Oh, yeah, there's another. Okay. Couple of tweaks to where text trails draw that I'm going to put in later. Justified text isn't particularly hard in Unity. It is hard with pixel fonts in general. Just the smaller your font, the less room you have to work with in terms of like spacing, which can sometimes be a problem. If you're seeing frame rate issues, this is a difficult problem with Parallax. I've mostly got them nailed down, but sometimes this is the side effect of the game still being in development, is that there are going to be some bits where it hits. Definitely those will be fixed by the time the game is done. Okay, so this was the point where it crashed last time, was in this fight. Unfortunately, it's just hard to render a capital K. It's just one of those things that's just difficult in pixel art. I think Chevy, the font creator, did the best work possible under the circumstances, but it does look a little bit like a lowercase. Anyway, the thing that I'm trying to teach in this tutorial fight is just that you have attacks on timers, but also you can like have multiple people doing attacks at once. Previously, while watching people play it at shows, I saw them like, often people would just like do one attack at a time, then wait for that person to come back, and then have the other person jump forward and then wait. Whereas really, you should just be throwing stuff out there all the time. Just constantly be throwing out attacks. It's better to be attacking than not attacking. Here's another thing that I had to iterate a lot in the tutorial just because this was also confusing and a little bit overwhelming. Right now, I am loading out items onto my characters. And you'll see that the bottom three correspond to the abilities that I had active in that fight before. And now I'm putting in some more. There isn't currently a previous dialogue log feature. I'll definitely be putting that in before the game is done. That'll be something that like I need to make a system for, but definitely that's been important to me in my visual novels, is making sure that like if you accidentally click through some dialogue, you can still see what it was. This is a bit of a soft tutorial. If you're in this lane, I want to teach that like you can change lanes. You can pick which of these you want to go into. Even during the visual novel segments. That's like your primary thing is going to be picking like what fight do you want to go to, which one do you think you can take. This is another tutorial fight that like I completely overhauled after seeing people playing it. It just worked in a totally different way. To explain this concept. And I was finding that I was telling players what buttons to press, but like just telling them that wasn't enough because they pressed the right buttons, but they didn't understand why to do it, and as a result, like it was just confusing. What I really want to do is explain what you want to do. Like, explain what you're doing and why you're doing it, which is, you want to be able to do 3 attacks in a row. And if you're not just constantly throwing out attacks, you're not playing right. An app called DTF that's optional challenge fights is a really good idea, and I might take that actually. I love it. This is a bit that I'm going to overhaul based on notes that I took during watching people play the updated tutorial last PAX. Since it's the Final Fantasy XIII problem. It's showing you too much text without actually you understanding it. It is the case that the stuff that's explained there is like explained in tutorials that like actually gates on the knowledge later, but I still think it's just too much text. Miguel's asking if these were the menus that he helped me rework. I'm going to show those in a little bit. A little further on, there's the ability to upgrade your items, and earlier the flow for that was really confusing, and like, they got streamlined based on both some feedback that Miguel gave and also just like some, he actually like gave me some red lines that really helped out a lot. I ended up redrawing them just like fit the style, but like it was some not red lines, wireframes that were just really good for showing the flow. Because once you get really deep into nested menus, it can get... it's true, RPGs are terrifying. And yeah, you'll see them using some of the same vocabulary that that Final Fantasy XIII uses. From the Ravager class in 13, I just call all magic attacks Ravage. So this was another thing that watching people play, they would hit one very specific encounter of the jerk patrol, and they would just be constantly calling their friends for help. So I wanted to show that you have the ability to disrupt everyone's special abilities. So these guys just heal each other on loop forever unless you're taunting. And part of the balance around taunting is that it means that they'll always use an attack. So some fights are balanced around, you know, enemies are only doing very little damage because they also have an ability that they use instead. And you'll make it slightly harder on yourself because you're taking more damage than you would be expected to. But also you're disrupting the ability. Another thing is that originally this menu was actually very different. We showed all the attacks instead of just these cute little icons, and we didn't have any of the text explaining what each class is. In the same way that Final Fantasy XIII kind of doesn't show you what each class means. And I just wanted to have these very obviously here so you understand immediately what the difference between each character is. But also we had to change all the colors to make these gradients work, because before they were just combinations that didn't gradient well together. Although I still think honestly Valentins were extremely cheating on the gradient there. That's not really the in-between color between pink and teal. There isn't an in-between color between pink and teal. That's just not how the color wheel works. So I'm kind of fudging it there. I think it looks okay. I'm sure no one else will ever notice that to the extent that I do. Nora in chat is asking if we have complex behavior trees. No, it's all pretty simple. Basically, every enemy has a normal attack and a special ability. And they just won't use their special ability while the taunt is active. There are some that have passive actions that can't be disrupted with a taunt. Those are later in the game. I don't have any that I can show right now. But I want all the manipulation of enemy behavior to be really straightforward. In general, one of my big things in this is just paring it down to the simplest possible model that you can, because I think that's much easier to keep in your head, and then from there, trying to build strategies. I feel like I've edited this whole bit twice to just add more actuallys into this whole bit. Another perhaps thematic similarity to Final Fantasy XIII. I wasn't really thinking about that, but it's there. So instead of paradigms, we have boards, which correspond to that screen that you saw in the menu. But once you get to the last one, instead you get this attack. Yeah, it was really not intentional, but I guess Valentin does, in fact, have one pretty major similarity to Snow, on top of being a himbo, is that they're either being punched in the face or telling someone that they're doing just a great job. By the way, I discovered another bug that, during the course of this fight just now. I'm not telling you what it is. Again, something only I noticed, but it's really bothering me. Here's a tutorial that wasn't originally a thing we were going to tutorialize at all. But watching people play the game, one of the things in this game is that you're supposed to just, if you can't, sometimes enemies are just too powerful to take, so you need to run. Pick another fight. Like, at level 1, you cannot take on a level 4 enemy that is massively more powerful than you. This is a scale from 1 to 10. 10 is endgame. So... So I want to have something that encourages the player to... Oh, by the way, let me just show you something funny here. In this whole thing, ignore Grace being sorted wrong, that's a known bug. So you'll notice that, like, we went to the one on the right and that was a level 4 fight, and these are level 1 fights. If I was in the middle lane, we cheat here. This is the only time that we ever cheat in the runaway system, is to tutorialize this. If you'd gone to the middle one, that would have turned into the level 4 fight. We actually had to add in code that circumvents the entire reloading a save system, because when you run away, it reloads your save from before this fight. Except for that one bit. It always remembers which one was the level 4 fight. So no matter what, you always get that bit of tutorial with the really hard enemy. And then you go, say, I'm not doing that, I'm going to do the level 1 instead. Andy in chat is pointing out there's another problem with running away, which is that it was very easy to, when mashing A to get through that end postcard, you would Yeah, also don't worry about that. That's also known. But yeah, if you're mashing A to get to the end postcard, it would just, it wouldn't stop you from mashing A immediately back into the fight again. So it would potentially, I try to avoid, like, putting, like, blackouts on, like, player input. Like, in general, it's bad if you're stopping the player from pressing A to advance. But sometimes, like, if the player's in a state where they're mashing, you actually do have to stop them from doing something that they weren't intending to do with the mash. I feel like it's a really fine line. I still try to avoid doing that as much as possible. Fox. Yeah, boards are like paradigms, and I mean, I think that's something that's a little bit unintuitive. Hopefully, as you play the game and see these things in action, it'll become apparent, like, what sorts of things you want to do around them. But yeah, it very much is, this is my version of the paradigm system. Instead of choosing from pre-chosen paradigms and, like, from pre-existing classes, you sort of build your own. You build your own builds, which still has a thing where, like, each character has their own, like, properties. Because, like, for example, Valentin is a tank, and the only tank, so special items given to them is turn into tank abilities, for example. And that's, like, unique to them. But it is, like, still rolling your own in that you can choose to put the tank abilities on, or you can, like, just give them, like, normal attacks. The boards are always in a fixed order, so there's a first board, a second board, and a third board. You can only move forward. You can only ever go next. Once you hit the third one, you use a Sword of Fate attack. It has a big timer on it to mean that you can't just, like, rapidly go through them. And it sort of turns into, like, it turns into a thing where, like, you want to fire off as many attacks as you can while managing your timers, so there are definitely things where, like, there are tactical reasons why you might want to put something on the first board versus putting something on the last board. I'm really interested to see what strategies people come up with. I've got some ideas, but I think this is something that's just, like, it's a space for the players to explore. Right now, you heal party in the gas station. This is just a debug thing. We're going to be putting in a special thing that are, like, save points that heal you. Norad in chat asks, if you just hammer the button, you get stuck on the third board until the Sword of Fate timer replenishes. Yes. And the reason why is because Miguel discovered that if you just keep mashing the button forever, it was a very powerful strategy, so I put a global timer on it, so you can only ever use the Sword of Fate every 12 seconds, which means that, like, you sort of have to be a little more sparing with it. Miguel says it's bullshit, which is correct. It was bullshit, and that's why you can't do it anymore. Okay, I'm experiencing a bug in this tutorial. We might be stuck here. That's okay, because this is the... That's okay, this is the last tutorial anyway. Yeah, that dialogue box shouldn't be disappearing. I'm not gonna bother. Thanks, Miguel. Yeah, that box was supposed to disappear. So Miguel helped me out with some of the layout and the flow of this. All the actual visual design here was something that I then looked at like his wireframe and like tried to make it fit into the idiom of the game. Yeah, this is totally broken. So I can't progress any further. But that's the whole tutorial anyway. Let me see, what else? Is there anything else that's interesting to show? Let me show what this upgrade looks like in just a normal game. I'm just gonna reset this whole dealie. Second. Thank you all for helping me find these bugs. If I wasn't trying to show it off, like, I just never know. Really, when you have someone else observing your game running, that's when you find all the really fucked up shit that shouldn't be happening. So right now, I'm just in a debug mode. But the tutorial that crashed, that was the final one in the game. After that, it just throws you right into the actual game. And you can see that that global cooldown in action. I'm waiting for Fate to come back. Ardish in chat asked if you can recover materials spent on upgrading items. No, you can't. I don't know how much I can break people's bad habits, but I'm hoping that players will... There's no reason to... items are not that sparse a resource, so hopefully players will feel comfortable just throwing away their stuff to mill. Once there's no reason to hold on to it. I want to make it so that like you can always get an older item if you want to see the story stuff. And as for what do I mean by story stuff, I'll show you in just a second. Andy in chat asks if I have gacha save scum protections. Not at this moment in time. I'm still thinking about how to do that. It's actually the only instance of RNG in the game is the gacha on buying things, and also the enemy animation cycles are on a slight random. Like the enemy abilities are fired off on a random timer. So like, for example, the healing squid will every third action use its healing ability, or like it'll be a 1 in 3 chance of using the healing ability. That's the only random. There's no randomization on like how much damage your attacks do, and yeah, I would like to create a situation where there is no point in save scumming. Save scumming is just a really frustrating thing for a player to do. It doesn't feel good. So, I'll figure something out. Probably it'll be something similar to like the Tetris bag system, where you're going from like a big pool. And by putting it on like its own seed, that would hopefully reduce, like, make it impossible to actually manipulate the RNG. I'm not like gonna stop people from trying to do speedrun strats or whatever, but I want to make it so that like this isn't something that you necessarily do within normal play. I kind of want people to like just feel free to experiment. So let me show off upgrading, yeah, let's just upgrade this one. So, because we've used this in battle, the way that the weapon stories work is that the first one is free. You always see the weapon story. Actually, here, I'll show you. This is a new item. We've never seen it. We've just rolled for it in the store. So you can see it only has the first. It only has the first weapon story unlocked. If I just throw in some of these items. By the way, it's cheaper to do it with healing items. Healing items are cheaper to do the gacha pull on because it's guaranteed to be the same item every time. And like, but also it's good to have healing items on deck. So hopefully that turns into a choice between like, what am I gonna upgrade with? Yeah, weapon stories. I was definitely inspired by I've only played Drakengard 3 and Nier Automata. I haven't played anything else that either Yoko Taro or Kavi has done before, but I mean, I really want to see the others, obviously. I felt like the weapon stories in Drakengard especially just like hit this really good tone of like morbid, sad, with like a funny punchline, and I was very inspired by them thematically. So yeah, you fully upgrade it, then you get a second story, and you have to use it in battle to unlock the final one. So let's just go do that right now. Do I have it equipped? No, I do not have it equipped, so let's actually equip that one. You can tell it's that one because it's the one that's been upgraded to 2+. I say this in the tutorial text that was unfortunately hidden behind a giant speech bubble, so you couldn't see it, but 2+ means that it's as effective as like rank 3. Let's equip some other stuff too. Just because. And yeah, one of Miguel's big suggestions was making it so that when you go through this menu, you press right and left just to go, you know, rightwards and leftwards. Before it was a thing where you got to this screen, then you press X to go into detail view, and then you move your cursor again, and it was very hard. Like, it seemed fine on paper to me, but I even found that myself personally, I was going to this menu quicker once I put that in. So, like, some unintuitive design just really is, even as a developer, even knowing full well what the unintuitive design is, if it's more intuitive, it's better even if you know. Even if it was the thing you thought of. Okay, so I'm just doing this fight so that I can count that as having used that in battle. Nier is definitely a game that I really want to play. I just need to, you know, find a copy and bust out my PS3. I feel like I just play so many more games when they're digital. It's just so much easier to like get access to them. Okay, so I used that in battle. On the postcard, it told me what road story unlocked. Let's go take a look. As you can see now, I've unlocked the third road story here. This currently isn't implemented, but eventually I'm going to put in a thing where you can look at the previous road stories you've unlocked, even if you've gotten rid of the item, just so like you don't feel compelled to keep stuff in your inventory past the point where it's useful. Again, I don't know how many bad habits I can break, like that's just like a difficult problem, but you know, I'm gonna do my best to make sure it's friendly in that regard. By the way, there's just something else I want to show you because I'm really proud of this effect. This is a very subtle thing, but if you look at the pink here, like the pink on the on this sacrifice 8 items to upgrade trinket box, if you just look at the gradient there, it's always when it's in the left corner. There's an orange gradient, and it turns to pink when it hits the bottom right. So even though that's actually the same box, it changes colors when it scrolls. I'm really happy with that effect. I really like that one. That's just a peek behind the curtain of stuff that I don't think anyone's ever gonna notice on their own, but I think it looks cool. Let's see, is there anything else I want to show off right now? You thinking about something? Oh, did you see it?
Not sure if I did.
Oh, here, I'll pull it out again. Miguel wanted to see the gradient. So you see, like, it's pink right now.
Oh. Neat. I like that.
I have the Miguel seal of approval, so that's good. Let's see, what else is there? Yeah, now that it's shown the tutorial, going forward, I'm just gonna have to figure out like what's an interesting thing to show off. I think this is probably a good place to wrap up, just a little bit early for this week. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being the observer that witnessed the tutorial breaking, so you can see it all. So I can hopefully go fix that right after. Yeah, I'll be continuing this next week, where I will be showing more Final Fantasy XIII, and I will figure out some mechanics that are not from the final boss fight. Unfortunately, that's the thing that I'm working on right now. Just like, I'm really frustrated. I'm doing a lot of cool stuff, and I can never post it. Like, I don't think I can ever just post screenshots of the final boss fight. So, so please look forward to that when the game comes out. Otherwise, I'll figure out what's a cool thing to show off. And yeah, thank you so much for joining. This was a lot of fun. Miguel, can I get you to?
No, I've decided to change.